Okie dokie. Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren, the language nerd here as per usual. Welcome to another episode of Azren's Journal. This is episode number 43, if I'm not mistaken. I'm excited to be recording this one. For those of you who are new to the segment, it's pretty straightforward. This is the part or segment on my YouTube channel where I talk about my personal language learning journey, and of course, a segment where I give you guys a whole bunch of different language learning tips. Let's dive right in. For the first time in probably 5 or 10 episodes, I have a bunch of personal language learning updates. In most recent episodes, I haven't really been sharing a crazy amount because there hasn't really been a whole lot to share. But today, there are different things that I would like to talk about in my personal language learning life. So the first thing is that today's Wednesday, as I'm recording this and as I'm making this video here. And on Friday, I'm going to be back at the University of Calgary. So for those of you who don't know, or perhaps if you've forgotten, I am doing a second bachelor's degree right now at the University of Calgary with, it's basically a degree in East Asian language studies and with a concentration in Mandarin. So essentially, it's kind of like a Chinese degree in many ways, with a little bit of Japanese, a little bit of other Asian-related topics. So that's starting up this Friday, and I am pretty excited. In fact, do I have it, or did I put it? Give me a moment. It's literally right behind me. Hang on. I'm going to grab something. Just a second. Oh, no. I bent it. Oh, man. This always happens. This always happens to my textbooks. I always do something silly and I bend them by accident. So this is the textbook we're using in the class. Fun story about this textbook here. So this textbook, I actually bought this a year ago approximately when I first started the second degree at the university. Thinking that this is the textbook I needed last year, because I actually got the textbook really early. And I was like, okay, in the first classes, they used this textbook. So logically, they'll probably use this textbook in the next classes. And I thought literally they would do one textbook per class. But no, they do half a textbook per class, which means that I got a book that was way too advanced. And I actually already studied a good percentage of this book last year because that's when I got it. And I was like, okay, I want to be prepared for the class. So funnily enough, not all this material, but a percentage of it for sure is already reasonably familiar to me. With my class coming up, my class is starting up this week on Friday. I've been thinking a lot about external motivators when it comes to learning another language. I think a lot of us, I'm one of those people. I'm someone who really needs external motivation. Like if there's not something outside of me, if there's not some other external force that's making me practice or study, I'm probably not going to be doing a crazy amount. So for Gujarati, one of the main reasons I actually get anything done is because if I don't do any homework or anything for a while, my teacher texts me like, hey, are we having a class soon? Are we going to do anything? I'm like, oh yeah, I should do that. For Mandarin, my class, right? Having classes at the university makes me do something. Having friends in Calgary who speak Mandarin makes me speak Mandarin because I hang out with them and I like speak in Mandarin, right? Or my work, I use Mandarin at my work. I've got students' parents who don't really speak a lot of English. I have no choice but to use Mandarin. I find when there's not really much of a choice, or when there's external factors that make me study and make me learn and practice, I tend to learn fastest. And that's one of the reasons why I take classes. It's why I integrate languages into my work in many ways. It's why I approach language learning in the way that I do. So that's definitely a personal language learning update that I wanted to share with everyone. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, again, it's a personal language learning thing, but I think this one can serve as a language learning tip as well. So one of the things that happens with many language learners is we don't necessarily recognize our improvements. and we don't necessarily acknowledge or realize that when we are progressing, because language learning progress tends to happen reasonably slowly. It's a slow but steady kind of movement forward, and therefore we don't always notice when we've improved. And so I'm actually a big believer of trying to, how do I say this? I'm a big believer of taking a step back, I would say every 3 to 4 months, and have an objective look at, have I actually gotten better? A lot of people actually struggle to figure out if they have gotten better. So there's a few metrics or a few things you can look at. Number one, do you know more words? Number two, can you talk about more topics than you could 3 or 4 months ago? Another thing you could look at is, do you understand more than you did 3 months ago? You could look back, number four, you could actually go and look back at your old notes and your old study materials and see if it's any easier than it was before. Right? These are some different things you can do to figure out if you have improved. And I think it's important to do so, as I said, every 3 to 4 months. I don't think you have to do it every day, every week. I've seen people who have like trackers, like Excel sheets, like really motivated people who get really detailed with it. And by the way, that's just fine. If you look through my content, you've seen I've been really detailed with my languages from time to time. I don't think it's bad. I just think that at a minimum, doing it every 3 to 4 months is probably good. And if you have not really improved, you've clearly got to make some changes. You've clearly got to go, okay, it's in 4 months of me studying in this way. I think I might have to change something because I haven't really gotten much better. So progress is kind of the measuring stick in many ways as to what strategies you should be following. I think some people make decisions on what strategies to do based on external opinions, based on other people's thoughts and beliefs and perspectives on language learning, which, by the way, it's not a problem at all. I just know myself, what I like to do is I like to use my own progress as the measuring stick on, is something working or should I make a change? Sometimes it's why I think I have very original ideas when it comes to language learning and in terms of teaching, things like that, because my ideas all come from my own head and my own experiences, which then gives it a different, maybe a fresh take or a different take on things than someone who's read a lot of books or things like that. So interesting thing that I wanted to talk about. I want to go into another category here, which is teaching languages. Teaching languages. It's something I don't talk about a lot, but it's something that I have a skill set in for sure. By the way, I see people in the chat. Hello. Tessa, was that your name? I think it was. Oh, I feel bad because we just met in person. But yes, I believe your name was Tessa. What's up, Tessa? Russian person. I don't know how to read Russian, so I can't read that, unfortunately. But hello, I appreciate you're there. So teaching, it's something I don't talk about a lot, but it's something that I have a skill set in. If you guys watched the last video, I gave kind of my model, quote unquote, as of how I teach languages in many ways. I wanted to share one random little thing that came to mind when it comes to teaching, which has to do with textbooks, funnily enough. I was having a conversation with somebody who asked me, hey, Azren, I was thinking about your classes and your work and what you do, and I had this suggestion for you. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm all ears, go for it. And this person said, hey, have you ever thought about following like a very specific curriculum when you teach classes, a very specific textbook or a specific guide or a specific methodology? And my response was twofold. Number one, I do have methodologies and processes and things that I absolutely follow. Absolutely. Like it's not just random willy-nilly. Like there are very structured things. There are guidelines. There are beliefs. There are step-by-step things I follow. Like absolutely. It's not something willy-nilly. I will say I used to be, when I first started teaching, I didn't really have the experience and I was trying to figure out kind of what the process would look like. But over time now I've kind of figured it out, at least for me. But what was interesting is the perspective on textbooks and teaching with the textbook and teaching with different resources, which, by the way, is fantastic. I actually don't see any problem with it whatsoever. I think it's amazing. I will say this, though. When I teach, you are my textbook. My student or students are the textbook. So when I teach, this sounds really weird, right? You are my guide. So let me give you an example. When I teach a group class, I'm teaching four group classes right now with about, call it 6 to 10 people in each group class. That's a large class for sure. And we don't have a textbook. My textbook is literally the classroom. I will see, what did I think we're going to learn this? And I teach that. I'll watch reactions. I'll watch to see what people struggled with. I'll watch to see what people liked. I'll watch to see what people didn't like. And using all of that information that I gathered by observation, right, by my own eyes and ears, I will then make the plan or adjust the plan for future classes. If I notice, wow, people really liked that listening activity, cool, we should do more of that listening activity. Ooh, people really don't know the present tense. Geez Louise, I didn't expect that at all. Looks like we have to do the present tense. And so that is kind of my guideline of what I teach, how I teach, right? And so that becomes my textbook or my guide as to what I need to teach and what system we're going to follow. So that's why I think for me, I really struggle to have, for example, a textbook like this and to go, all right, chapter 1, right? 人真多，你是新生吧？是我, and then like, okay, let's read it together. Let's do this exercise. All right, we're on exercise F. Shoot, I left it behind. 糟糕，it's difficult for me. It's difficult because I might need a concept that's taught in this textbook. So I might need this resource, but then again, maybe the class is going to struggle with something that doesn't exist in this textbook. Who knows? Maybe that's not in unit lesson 1, exercise E or exercise F. Maybe not. And so that's why I tend to use the internet a lot for my resources, because the internet, I can pull open whatever I need. I can pull out whatever resources. I literally need a laptop to teach my classes. That's the most important, or maybe a phone, right? Maybe those are kind of the most important resources I need to teach a class, right? So that's definitely a big thing that's on my mind. Let's actually get into the title of this video. I just realized I had a completely different plan for what I wanted to talk about. But we haven't touched on that topic yet. I've titled this video, I don't remember what I've titled this video. What the heck have I titled this video? I forget. Let me quickly pull it up because I can't remember what the topic was supposed to be. So embarrassing. How do I view the video? It's thinking. What was I gonna? It was a really cool topic. It was really nice. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. Oh yes, focus on what matters and most things don't. Yes, that was the topic. Okay, here we go. So Tessa says, like a DJ, you can hit play on a specific set, or you can know your collection and read the crowd to figure out what to play later. Yeah, absolutely. Very similar. Also, I missed your first comment there. Do I know what if your answer to do I know more like questions is something along the lines of, oh my God, I'm worse 3 months later. Probably just a bad day. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be worse 3 months later if you've been studying. I've never seen that before. That seems bizarre. If you've been practicing and studying, but you're worse 3 months later, I'd probably imagine you're really stuck in your head. You're not actually worse. You're just psyching yourself out. If you're practicing regularly and you're worse 3 months later, there's something not right there. You're probably psyching yourself out. That's my guess. So anyway, let's talk about the actual topic of what I plan to talk about. Focus on what matters, and most of it doesn't. So I mentioned this in my podcast. By the way, my podcast has got some of some of my most honest content, I find, some of the most like Azren content, like some of the deepest content. I really recommend you follow that podcast. It's literally called The Language Learning Show, wherever you get your podcasts. Like, I really recommend you listen to it. It's some of the best stuff I make, I think. Anyway, so I talked about this on the podcast, but let's bring it to YouTube as well. When we look at language learning, there's many different strategies and techniques. There's study at home programs, there's classes, there's teachers, there's using music. There's a bunch of different things, right? And they're all, or many of them anyway, are really, really, really good ways to approach language learning. No doubt about it. I think we can all agree on that one. I will say this though. I believe anyone watching this video, especially if you're 15 minutes in, you probably are someone who really enjoys language learning. And I find people who are very into language learning have a tendency of getting too much into the strategies and the techniques and things like that. We do too much on the research side, really, in my perspective, a lot of us. And I actually think that's probably not the most effective way to go about it. I view it here's the best analogy I can give you that I feel that I align with the most. You know, I've ever since 2016, I've been focusing on getting healthier. So nutrition-wise, sleep-wise, physical activity, flexibility, strength, all, you know, the whole kit and caboodle, the whole 360 view on health, right? Mental health, everything. So I am not that knowledgeable about nutrition and exercise. I'm not super knowledgeable. I'm nowhere near an expert. All I know are some basics. Fruits and vegetables, they're good for you. Processed foods, not good. Too much sugar, not good. If you don't sleep very much, not good. You sleep too much, not good, right? You got to exercise? Yes. You should probably use all the muscles in your body, work them out? Yeah. You want to get more flexible? You got to stretch. How do you stretch? Well, you can watch some videos, you can do some stretches. How long should you stretch? There's a lot of stuff I don't know, but you've got to stretch. That I think is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of very common sense things I know, and that's basically all I know. I'm not an expert by any means, okay? I use the basic knowledge that I have to try and become healthier. For example, I want to be more flexible, so I stretch every day. I want to have more, I want to use my muscles more, so I do some push-ups, I do some sit-ups. The form might not be perfect. I might not be doing it the best way. Maybe I should be doing more push-ups. Maybe I should, who knows, right? But I'm doing something that makes sense every day, and I'm making sure I'm not hurting myself, and I'm trying to do the best I can with the basic knowledge that I have. And lo and behold, I can do more with my body today than I could 4 months ago, for example. I can do more push-ups than I could. I can do more sit-ups than I could. I can do more jumping jacks than I could before. There's just so many things. I can stretch a little bit more than before. I'm a little bit more flexible because I've done something every day. So I think sometimes the point I'm trying to make with language learning and really many things in life, I think a lot of people have a default of saying, I want to learn a whole bunch of stuff about languages, about how to learn or how to do X, Y, Z, before I actually start to do anything. And my perspective, my argument is you should learn the basics, learn enough, learn a little bit, and immediately start doing. While you're doing, learn more at the same time. So for example, I've learned some new exercises that I can do that I didn't know were good for me, but I've been also exercising every single day, right? I've learned that, what else? I've realized that the way I was stretching before wasn't actually the best way for me to stretch my hamstrings. I realized that I actually wasn't getting a deep enough stretch. I learned that. So now I'm doing better things to get a deeper stretch in my hamstrings. And then that's probably going to lead to more results faster, right? But I was still stretching before. I was still doing it and still seeing some results. So with languages, I implore you, I implore everyone to do the same thing. I implore you to do and learn simultaneously. Don't just learn and don't just do. Do both. So at the end of the day, the reason I titled this video, Focus on What Matters and Most Things Don't, is that the reality is most of the strategies and most of the research and most of that, 90% of it doesn't matter. You just have to learn a little bit, learn enough that you're like, okay, I kind of see how this works, and start doing. Focus on that little bit that matters, and then focus more on the doing than trying to learn everything. Because the deeper you get into the academia of trying to figure out what strategies work, what's the best research, the more you realize that, oh my goodness, while there's a lot of things that are tried and true, there's so much we just don't know. There's so many conflicting debates, there's so many conflicting viewpoints, there's so many strategies, there's so many different ways people approach it. I'm someone who talks a lot about languaging, and there's so many people who talk a lot about language learning, like, wow, right? So Anyway, let's wrap this video up here. I appreciate your attention. Let's just quickly go through the chat, make sure I haven't forgotten anything. I'll interrupt you, but I want to say I'm finally on vacation. Hey, hallelujah. Well done being on vacation. Oh, that's a difficult name to say. Grzegorz. Grzegorz. Gajowski. Oh my goodness. I gotta learn some Slavic languages to have some concept on how to read names. I'm assuming that's a Slavic name, actually. I don't even know if it is a Slavic name. Might not be. Have you ever learned Norwegian? Nope. I have not learned any Norwegian. Actually, this is a great place to finish this off on. You made me think of something. I was recently at Langfest. By the way, I did my presentation on Gujarati at Langfest. If you haven't seen that, go check out my previous video, the previous 2 videos, actually. I gave my talk on it. Very, very interesting. I feel reasonably good about it. Actually, 2 things we can finish off on. Both examples of what I said. So 2 things. Number 1, public speaking, I'm okay at it. I'm not great. I don't think I'm great. I think there's a lot of improvement that I can make, but I still do public speaking. I'm good at it. I'm adequate. I'm not the best, I don't think, but I'm learning at the same time as doing. I'm not diving into public speaking and like trying to learn everything and not do it. I'm doing it at the same time as I'm trying to learn more about it. So that's a great example, a meta example of what we're talking about a moment ago. I think that's a good way to approach it. I'm really happy that this talk at Langfest was a million times better in my eyes than last year's talk. I actually don't like my last year's talk. I'm like, nope, I missed the ball. There's a lot of learning from it. So anyway, so that's number 1. And number 2, talking about Norwegian here. So when I was at Langfest last year, I believe, 2018, there was a game called, I forget what it was. It was like a quiz, like a general quiz done by UTalk about languages. I went to it, and they're putting these different trivia questions and we get to answer on our phones about different languages. They'd be like, what language is this? They put some script on the screen, or they give all these different trivia questions about language learning. Now, I call myself Azren the language nerd. I really like learning languages. I feel that I know a lot about learning languages. I know a lot about teaching languages. I speak a bunch of languages, but I failed the quiz miserably. Like, I probably did the worst on that quiz out of every single person that was there. Everyone probably did better than me. I think I got like, I don't know, 4 right answers. Like literally, I did worse than just if I guessed on every. I think I gave up halfway through. I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm so useless at this. There's no hope. And the reason I think ties very similarly into this whole learning versus doing debate. There's a lot of people in the room who really knew their stuff, right? They really, really knew. I have this hair that's like dangling at my eye level, and I keep feeling it. I've been like trying to get it this whole time. I really need a haircut, by the way. Need a haircut. So anyway, so people were really doing well, right? But I was struggling, and I think it ties into that. I focus heavily on I focus probably more attention on doing than I do just focusing on theoretics, if that makes sense. And I really, when I approach languages, I want to have a deep level of knowledge on a language before I move on. Pronunciation, expressions, slang, grammar, reading, right? I really want to have a deep level before I move on. But this quiz was very general. It was talking about a lot of different languages. And because I focus so little on just the theory side, and I'm so focused on just my own, like my lane, you know, something like that was more difficult for me. And I guess it's not really the same topic. It's not, in that comment I just made does not tie directly into this whole doing versus just theoretical knowledge debate and everything. Not exactly, but still something that kind of, I think there's some connection there as well. I think there's some kind of psychological connection. And again, not saying I'm better or worse. I think for me, it's better personally. I think for things that I personally value, I do think mine is better, but I don't think it's better inherently. I think it's better for me based on my values, based on what I value and what matters to me with language learning, etc. So yeah, anyway, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Please follow the podcast, The Language Learning Show. I'd appreciate it. And yeah, we'll really want a haircut. It's so long. I called my hairdresser today. I was like, It's not even that long. It's just that, like, check this out. Like, it's just like, look at this. Like when I make my hair straight, like it's down to like my eyebrows. Like, check that out. Look at that. Like if I can brush it and make it straight, like it's so, man, look at that. It's so shaggy and like, and then I think I mentioned it so briefly. I might be balding. I mean, I'm not really sure. Like there might be a little bit of initial like thinning of the hair. I haven't fully figured it out, but yeah, it's not really good. Soon it'll be Azren the bald language nerd. Hopefully not soon, but it's all good. Anyway, all right. As I said, thanks so much. We'll talk later. Bye for now. See you.